In this lesson, we're going to talk about the different forms of organization that a firm can take. So firms can be organized in terms of a sole proprietorship, a partnership, and that can be a general partnership or a limited liability partnership, or finally a corporation. And a corporation can also be an S corporation, or it could be a limited liability company. A sole proprietorship is a business that's unincorporated and owned by only one person. So the advantages of a sole proprietorship are that it's easy to start and it's the least regulated form of business organization. You will want to check your state for any requirements, but if, for example, you're a woodworker and you want to start making something, you can go ahead and get started in your own garage. Most corporations actually started as a sole proprietorship, and this is the most common form of business because they're easy to start and they're the least regulated. The biggest advantage is that the owner maintains complete control of the business and makes all of the decisions. All of the profits are kept by that owner, and they're taxed once as that person's personal income. The biggest disadvantage is that a sole proprietorship has unlimited liability. So if someone were to sue the sole proprietor's business, they could sue for all the business assets as well as even personal assets. Another disadvantage is that it's limited to the owner's life. The business ends at the owner's death or loss of interest in the business. Another disadvantage is that the equity capital available to invest into the business is limited to the owner's wealth and their network's wealth. So by their network, I mean their family, their friends, and other people that they can tap into for help with starting the business. It is difficult to sell ownership of a sole proprietorship because there's no way to sell individual shares of the sole proprietorship. So I mentioned earlier that you could tap into your family and friends for help with starting the business. You can't actually sell them ownership, or it wouldn't be a sole proprietorship anymore. When you sell a sole proprietorship, you sell the entire business. If you wanted to sell individual shares, then it would then become a partnership if you wanted to partner with other people, or it would become a corporation. But again, most businesses start as a sole proprietorship. A partnership is a business that's between two or more persons, and generally these people join together to carry on a trade or business. So for example, this could be a group of dentists who decide to partner together and open a dental office together. It could be a group of doctors that decide to practice together. It could be a group of lawyers that decide to practice together. Lots of other business can be partnerships as well. The advantages of a partnership are that it's also easy to start. And now, instead of having equity capital coming from just one person, you now have it coming from all of the partners and all of their networks as well. Another advantage is that income is taxed once as personal income. Some disadvantages: similarly to a sole proprietorship, partnerships have unlimited liability if they're general partnerships. Remember that unlimited liability means that if someone sues the business, they can go after all of the business assets as well as personal assets of the owners. In a limited liability partnership, limited partners are exempt from that unlimited liability. They actually have limited liability, so their personal assets can't be sought after. However, even in a limited partnership, at least one partner needs to be a general partner. And if the business is sued, that person's personal assets can also be gone after. The disadvantages, like with a sole proprietorship that ends with the owner's death, a partnership dissolves when an owner dies or decides to sell their interest in the business. It is difficult to sell the ownership interest because not only are you selling a portion of the business, you're also selling a partnership with someone else. So if someone is interested in purchasing your interest in a partnership, they have to meet the other partner, they have to decide if they're going to get along with them, if they're going to work well together, and essentially what you're doing is selling someone kind of like a marriage. The third type of business organization is a corporation. A corporation is different because it is a separate legal entity. So legally, a corporation is a person, and it's distinct from the owners. So it's different and separate from the owners. And a corporation is also a resident of a state. So when you incorporate a business, you do have to incorporate in the state you're in and meet those requirements. The advantages of a corporation are that it has limited liability. So far, when we looked at sole proprietorship and partnership, those two types of businesses have unlimited liability. But with a corporation, if someone sues the business, they can only go after the business assets. They can't go after the personal assets of the owners. So for example, if you're a shareholder in Apple and someone sues Apple, they can only go after Apple's assets. They can't come after you as a shareholder and go after your personal assets. So that's what we mean by a corporation has limited liability. A corporation also has unlimited life. because it has its own tax identification number. Again, it's a separate person from the owners, and because it's not a physical, living, breathing person, theoretically, it has unlimited life or perpetual life, so it can go on forever. Another advantage is the separation of owners and managers. This could be a good thing because most of us are not experienced enough to manage a firm and make decisions for a multi-million or multi-billion dollar firm. Instead, we can hire managers who have more experience and skill in that area. Another advantage is that it's easy to sell or transfer ownership. So we talked about Apple before. If you are a shareholder of Apple and you're ready to sell your ownership, you can just go on your phone, probably on an app, and sell your Apple shares. Similarly, you can buy Apple shares in the same manner. You can use an app, you can go on your computer. It's very easy to transfer ownership. Now, a lot of times when we think of a corporation, we think of a really large business like Apple. But even small businesses can be corporations. And even then, it's easy to sell and transfer ownership. Because when you're a corporation, it allows you to sell shares. So if you're interested in raising money, you can sell shares of the firm and you can obtain cash for those shares. And that allows you to invest in assets and take advantage of opportunities that you wouldn't be able to take advantage of otherwise if your business was a sole proprietorship or a partnership, because you wouldn't be able to sell that equity. That goes along with the next advantage. It's easier to raise capital because you can sell these shares in a corporation. It doesn't have to be just one owner with a sole proprietorship, or you don't have to be selling a large share of the business in a partnership. Some disadvantages of a corporation are the agency problem. This is actually connected to that separation of owners and managers, which we said earlier was an advantage. And in most cases, it is an advantage because we're hiring people who are experts at making these decisions. It can be a disadvantage when the interests of owners and managers conflict, and that's when we face the agency problem. So we'll talk more about that later. Another disadvantage of a corporation is the double taxation problem. So we said before with a sole proprietorship and a partnership that all income is taxed as personal income, but with a corporation, if you'll remember from your accounting course, net income is after tax dollars, right? So we have taxable income minus taxes and then net income. From net income, we then pay dividends to the owners, and then those dividends get taxed at the owner's personal income tax level. So they've gotten taxed once at the corporate level, and then they get taxed again. Those same dollars get taxed again at the personal income tax level. So that's what we mean by the double taxation problem. So this is a disadvantage faced by corporations. If you're starting your own business, it's important for you to research further the different advantages and disadvantages of a sole proprietorship, a partnership, and a corporation so you can make the best decision for your business. And of course, you can always change this type of organization later. From now on and for the rest of the semester, whenever we talk about the firm, we're going to assume that the firm is a corporation. So it's important to think about that when we're talking about the firm later on in other chapters and we're making decisions for the firm. Always imagine that we're doing it for a corporation. However, a lot of the same things can apply to a sole proprietorship and a partnership.